This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I was trying to get it how I live. I want them dead presidents. I want to pull up, head spin, get it, get fly. I got 6 jobs, I don't get time. I don't get time. I don't get time. I don't get time. Get it, get fly. I got.
And we are still not tired on episode number 31 of Two Bad Hombres. I am your host, Vito Jerome Churko, alongside my usual sidekick and partner in crime, that is the Doc, from Doc and Jock, John Charles Macaroon. John, how's it going?
Vito, welcome to the weekend. The summer is drawing to a close. You've had your adventures. I'm looking forward to this podcast. Definitely looking forward to recapping what you did in Chicago. Always a great opportunity to share some time with you on this very fine podcast. What's happening, sir?
Well, it's part of things that I did in the past weekend that Doc was not invited to. Well, last weekend, that is, I went to Chicago, Chi-Town as I like to call it once in a while. I did.
Awesome that you went by train. What was that like?
The Amtrak train, yes, I never had gone to the train station. It's close to Wayne State. And you know what was an interesting experience? It's a cast of characters on my train ride. And it was long, though, 5 to 6 hours, about 5.5 hours, I would say, for the train ride. And I got used to it after a while, being on the train, I think, and relaxed, settled in. My buddy and I, not Nick Schmiegel, by the way. Nick Schmiegel was not a part of this part of the trip, as it was somebody else who went to school with me at Detroit Mercy, at De La Salle, in grade school and middle school at St. Thecla in Clinton Township, Michigan. His name, I'll drop his name here, Mike Cornish, for the first time I think I'm dropping his name. He went on the train with me to Chicago, and he brought his laptop, tried to get some Netflix started up on his laptop. It wasn't working because the Wi-Fi connectivity wasn't great for him. And I was on my phone using some spotty Wi-Fi as well, so relaxing like that at first, sitting by each other on the train. And then we ended up moving on to the beer station or the food cart area where you could get a snack. And we got 3 cervezas, 3 Coronas each with the lime. Had to have the lime in each one of the Coronas. So we got started relatively early, but by the time we got off of the train, by the way, it was 11 or midnight, maybe midnight even Chicago time already. So it was late when we got into my buddy Nick Schmiegel's brother's apartment. When we got into my buddy Nick Schmiegel's brother's apartment, it's like a studio apartment and located in the downtown area. He spends a pretty penny on this apartment, and he still goes to school. He's at DePaul University spending a pretty penny to spend his time to live in this apartment. And like I said, in a great area, downtown centric. You can do a lot around where he lives in Chicago. And it was a fun night Friday night. That was Friday night when we got in. Saturday, we spent the whole entire day there, myself and the rest of the crew that was there for the weekend. And actually, Nick and his cousin, Stephanie Schmiegel, had gathered in Chicago for Lollapalooza. So they enjoyed their time at Lala for Thursday and Friday earlier in the day. And then I saw Nick for the first time and Stephanie on Friday night at Michael Schmiegel, Nick Schmiegel's brother's apartment once again, where he had a crowd gathered already. His crew was all there. Some of them were lit up, and they were a lively bunch. I was lively because I was kind of feeling no pain, and I had a good time. Nonetheless, on Friday night, maybe got a little bit too much into it with this mafia act that I was putting on jokingly, sarcastically, whatever way you want to call it. But so I had a little fun with that. And I hope I didn't offend too many people that night in displaying my mafia act. But I thought it was a funny little bit I did, and it was a lot of fun. Played some beer pong as well, and Nick Schmiegel was my partner, and Nick and I did not do too well on Friday night playing beer pong. But to sum it all up, we spent the whole entire Friday night inside Michael Schmiegel's apartment, where he had, like I said, a big cast of characters, too, in his apartment.
Very cool. So you had a good time. Did it go as according to plan? You feel like you got the most out of it? Did you have a great time there?
Oh, I think because to the Amtrak station, that train taking off from the Amtrak station by Wayne State, because that went off so well, went so smoothly that I think it started my weekend in the right way. And then once I got to the apartment, we had a good time Friday night. Saturday, spent it well by getting brunch earlier in the day and then going to the Cubs game from there by taking the subway, getting off at Addison, that's the stop you get off at for the Chicago Cubs games. We saw Wrigley, took a photo outside of it at the very end of the game on Saturday afternoon. It was the Cubs playing the Nationals, 2 great squads in the National League, 2 great teams that could make the World Series this year. The Cubs could win a second straight World Series championship. The Nationals looking for their first. And it looks like, well, the Nats are overdue, so they got to get it done this year, or get it done very soon while they still have Bryce Harper. That was very fun seeing Bryce Harper, perhaps the best player in all of Major League Baseball right now, maybe number 2 right behind Mike Trout of the LA Angels of Anaheim. If he's not number 1, it is Trout. That's what I'm trying to say, too.
So, Vito, obviously, Detroit is trying to emulate the big cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. They're trying to provide a lot of entertainment, trying to make it so that people go downtown, obviously now with Ford Field, Comerica Park, Little Caesars Arena within 4 blocks of each other. The downtown area is bumping, and many people will compare Chicago to Detroit. From my experience going to Chicago, it is outstanding with the Navy Pier, with all the restaurants, the entertainment that you can enjoy, the shopping. I don't think Detroit is as close to Chicago as they may want to be, but it's pretty darn close, at least if you're a sports fan, and that's what I am. But if you're a fan of entertainment, dating, things like that, I just feel like Chicago has so much more to do. Like, you could literally spend all day walking around downtown Chicago and not hit every single store, whereas if you go downtown, you're going to hit that Woodward area, you're going to hit, maybe a couple blocks, maybe the Jefferson area, the riverfront, but other than that, where else are you going to go in the downtown Detroit area? For me, it just seems like Detroit's getting there with the entertainment venues and what they're trying to accomplish to draw more people in. But right now, still, wouldn't you think Chicago still has a slight lead in terms of being a much more fun destination to hang out if you're going to spend a weekend?
Jack, honestly, I believe that Detroit pales in comparison to Chicago for the nightlife, for the sight. You see the sight lines, from those high-up buildings they have, monstrous buildings, towerist buildings, such as Trump Tower, which I visited. I actually did go to visit Trump Tower. It was distasteful for me. It was all right. But I'll tell you the truth, I didn't buy anything. Didn't buy any drinks from there. It was highly expensive. My buddies, the 2 of them, got 2 drinks, one for, each of them. And it was $100 for these 2 little drinks. So, yeah, at Trump Tower.
Whoa.
Way overpriced. And, it's elaborately designed. It's supposed to look all, high end, and it is. It's an expensive place to stay, expensive place just to be in, and to go and get a drink, obviously, now is what I found out as well. Luckily, I didn't find out the hard way. Like 2 of my other buddies, like I said, they got their drinks, 1 each, and together the 2 drinks combined to be $100 or $100+, and then there was the tip. They didn't give much of a tip because it wasn't worth it. They just got a drink each, and that was it, and the server didn't do too much, wasn't really even around to do anything. So Trump Tower, that experience, it was just something, I guess, going up there to the rooftop or to one of the high levels, not the rooftop, but one of the higher levels of Trump Tower where the bar was, and you could walk outside. You were outside at this bar at Trump Tower. So that was cool. The sight lines were cool from Trump Tower that we were able to see. But would I go back there? Would I even entertain the idea of going back there? Probably not once I saw those prices.
Dude, Vito, your boys got to ask. How do you be surprised by the drink prices? You got to ask. You got to look at the menu. You got to see, like, hey, you can't just go haphazardly to a nice place and just be like, yeah, I want this, and just assume that it's going to be affordable. What if it was going to be $75 a pop,
My God, it nearly was that, right? But it wasn't quite that. It was about $50 then, $50 a pop.
Well,
so it was a guy and his girlfriend. So the 2 of them, the couple, they just got a bourbon, maybe an old fashioned and a mixed drink, and it equated to $100 or $100 plus. Now, come on, your bill should not be that much in totality for 2 little drinks, barely anything in them or whatever, in terms of just what was served to them. So did we like it overall-wise? Probably it wouldn't get the best grade from us overall-wise, at least for me. And I didn't even order a drink, but it was good. I did not order a drink. I benefited from not ordering a drink because I saved a lot of money that I would have spent for just 1 measly drink. And they had just 2 of them. 2 measly drinks, and it was that much money. For Trump Tower, I know the price is going to be higher, but that's living the high life a little bit too much for my liking, Doc. And especially when it's Trump Tower, with that guy's name on the tower, too.
So did you partake in Lollapalooza? Did you go to any of the musical festivities? I know a lot of people are really enjoying these musical festivals, these outdoor festivals where, you got multiple stages, you kind of live the outdoor life a little bit, kind of enjoy the ambiance of being with a large group of people watching music. If Nick was here, he definitely would be talking about Lollapalooza. I saw a lot of great pictures. My little cousin went, and I'm fascinated to get her take on it. But it seems like these music festivals are really fun and one of those things where I've never done it before. And I definitely heard the story about the outdoor festival that was in the Bahamas or the Atlantic, and it turned out to be an absolute disaster.
People were
heard
stuck.
About that. Oh my gosh. And but people rave about festivals like Coachella. There's been a couple around town here that people just rave about, and they plan and really have a good time going to see. Are you into those kind of music festivals? Did you go to Lollapalooza in Chicago?
I did not go this year. Have never gone. Now, maybe would I go? Yes, I would entertain the idea of it, unlike entertaining the idea of going back to Trump Tower. So I would go to Lala if the right acts were there and if I got time off of work, which I don't like trying to get time off of work. I don't really have a full-fledged job to just take the time off of work. And I had a Somebody Football Media Day as well that, remember, I went to before I went to Chicago last weekend. So I had to go to that, had to work on Friday, with that being said. So couldn't really get my weekend started until Friday night. And that's when we took the Amtrak train to Chicago, got there Friday night, spent the time in the apartment. But then Saturday, it wasn't just Trump Tower, by the way, or the Cubs game. We also went to a Marriott nearby, got a drink there really quick. We went to a great place to eat, the au jus sauce. I had some of that with my meal, my sandwich, on this great bread. It was really tasty, dipped into that sauce. And the au jus sauce, have you had that? Never have had it?
Yeah, Vito, I've tried French dips all across town in Detroit and different restaurants. I'm not really a fan of the French dips, but for me, when I go out, I like to just, go with the old-fashioned hamburger and beer.
Yeah, simplify it for yourself.
Or check out the barbecue in the area, or check out the pizza. Obviously, when you go to Chicago, did you indulge in any deep dish action?
No, I did not, but my buddies did before we got there, and they really enjoyed that pizza. They did.
Obviously, Vito, deep dish pizza originated in Chicago. Where did you go out to eat? What are some of the restaurants you went to?
Well, the sandwich with the juice sauce, I forget the name of the restaurant exactly, but they had a mixture of IPA and craft beers too, which I don't know what the heck all those are. Had to get informed by my buddy Mike Cornice, another name drop for him. He's like the beer connoisseur, the drinking expert that we go to for all our knowledge and tips about what we should, get to drink on the menu, because like Nick and I, we're not like typical IPA or craft beer guys, so we had to look on the menu and get help from Mike to find out what we would like based on his recommendation or recommendations. So we ate dinner at a great place where I got that meal that I talked about already, and then after that we went out just drinking, bar hopping, and we went to a club to end the night called Social 25, located on 25 West Hubbard Street. And Hubbard, does that ring a bell? I believe he's the founder of Scientology. How about that?
Yeah.
But we didn't go over there, and we weren't influenced by anything Scientology related. We were influenced maybe by the live music, the live band that was playing at Social 25, a great club. And as they have it on their website, they describe it as a place being located in Chicago's trendy River North neighborhood. And it's a swanky, they say a swanky 2-level bar that has become a local and tourists' favorite hot spot. How about that?
So all in all, you had a good time, enjoyed the food, enjoyed the ambiance, you had a good time. The whole purpose was kind of just to get away a little bit, train ride. Most of the time when you go to Chicago, most people do not complain. It's just a great spot. What do you think Detroit has to do as a city, the downtown area, to start to bridge the gap a little bit? Because I know they're trying in terms of the entertainment, what can be provided. Detroit does offer quite a bit. What do you do when you go downtown to Detroit, and what do they got to do to bridge that gap? Because I know there's a lot of great sites. I know that Chicago has, obviously the riverfront by Lake Michigan. They got the Navy Pier. They got great sports stadiums. They got the same similar things as Detroit, but maybe just more of them, a lot more space. At the same time, Chicago as a city are dealing with some issues in the inner cities as well, similar to Detroit. Entertainment-wise, downtown, I feel like Detroit has a lot to offer and maybe underrated as a spot because there's a lot of clubs, a lot of spots where you can go have a good time. You can go drink affordably, great restaurants, sporting events. You can go walk down to Hart Plaza sometimes where there's, one of the biggest festivals in the world is the Technofest that happens in the summertime. People fly in from Germany. They fly in from all countries of Europe to come check out this Technofest. And I think it's one of the biggest electronic musical festivals in the entire world. So I do think that Detroit is inching ever so close to being like Chicago, but what do you think Detroit would need to kind of bridge that gap?
More chic places?
More chic? You want to spend more money?
But Chicago, that's the difference maker, isn't it?
Stop it.
If you don't have the money, you're not going to really get the full aspects of Chicago and fully embrace it, right? The mentality and livelihood of one that does live in Chicago. Because it can be very fashionable, depending on places that you go to in Chicago. Elegant, ritzy, and high-end and high-priced subsequently, such as at Trump Tower and other places that we did end up going to on Saturday, specifically when I was in Chicago last weekend. And the bar tab, it did rack up eventually. I mean, at Social 25, the drinks were expensive there too, but that's more of a ritzy club. If you go to any kind of ritzy or higher end club, right, / bar, you're going to have to deal with the higher bar tab. And I did on Saturday night subsequently, but guess what? I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And I think everybody else did because the drinks were flowing. We were dancing at Social 25. We enjoyed thoroughly the live band. And that's why we were so into it, so into the scene that surrounded you at Social 25. It was just a darn good atmosphere. I had an upstairs and a downstairs. So the live band was upstairs, more music downstairs, more of the clubby scene downstairs. So it had the best of both worlds. And for me, that's why that club, Social 25, was attractive. And really, that was a great nightcap for Saturday night and a great end of my weekend. Really the best way to cap it off. And it's a large reason why, and along with, being around my buddies, two of the biggest reasons why I had a great time in Chicago last weekend.
When's the last time you were with a woman?
Well, does my friend's girlfriend count? Who is Nick's cousin? I don't know. Maybe it does. And there was another girl there too. Well, I'm saying it's not my girlfriend or anything close to my girlfriend, but we had girls around. I had a girl, I'll say this really quick. I'm going to say it to the masses here. I had a girl that was patting me on the behind at one point. I think in a way to she did get my attention because I did end up dancing beside her.
How old were you when you lost your virginity?
Good question, Howard. Let me get back to you on that one. What's your number? I would love to be on your show. We could talk about it forever and ever. But there were women around me. It was a lively crowd, man. You had women, men, everything in between too, dude.
So it sounds like from what you're saying is that you definitely have friends that are definitely bring a lot of women around. I think you need to go from that zone where you're having a good time to it's time to kind of take this to the next level.
Take it to that level where I'm all about the women. Because I know my mind doesn't work that way. I don't know what it is, man. And I'm not asexual.
Okay.
Well, you know that. That's been established, right?
Oh, you're gay.
In a previous episode.
Well, okay, so you're not
what would
asexual.
be wrong with that?
No,
But
you're not asexual.
Go on.
So I think that's what it is that you're such a nice guy that it's hard for maybe even young ladies to kind of picture you in that mode. But
In the way
unfortunately,
you have a timeout. In what mode?
I think that you have to kind of up the game that you have sexually in terms of getting women attracted to you in that way.
The ante needs to be upped when it comes to my
You got to use your.
sexual game, huh?
I think for you, and I kind of get that vibe, is that you're definitely a fun guy. You're definitely a nice guy. People can talk to you, but at the same time, to take it to that next level, Vito, I think you got to kind of be a little bit more assertive and just be like, look, are you guys down to have some fun? You got to find those phrases.
That's how you would say it?
Yeah.
Time out. Now, you've told me about many of your stellar catchphrases in the past, and you had numerous of them.
Yeah.
And I know it got you like 75 women before you met your wife.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with also a little bit of gamesmanship where you're like, oh, you know what? I forgot my wallet in my room. You want to come with me and help me find
Time
it?
out. Would the DOC have ever pulled off such a catchphrase to get a girl to go back with them?
See, no, but at the same time...
Okay, so what are you telling me for then?
Because what I'm saying is through my experience, I've realized what I've heard others have utilized to try and secure the bag, or as we say, close the deal.
Close the deal, yeah.
I know a lot of closers. I'm around a lot of guys that have been,
good closers, but you're not a closer. You're not trying to brag about yourself as being a closer in years past.
But if I were to relive my 20s, I would just be like, I'd probably have like 8 more kids. So all I'm trying to do is help a brother out. And I think what you got to do is you got to up your communication skills a little bit and be like, look, any way at all to get you back into my room, because if you don't get back into my room, it ain't going to ever happen. It ain't going to happen with you and Nick around. You got to be like, look, oh, you know what? I left this thing in my room. I
left something in my room, in my bedroom.
Yes.
Nice big bed in there, by the way. Comfortable bed.
The next step is on your next trip. Did you say, maybe instead of spending so much money on the drink, did you stay at a nice place, nice bed, nice view?
Well, it was my buddy's, Nick's brother's apartment. So how nice was it? It's nice because of what area it's in, by the way, too. And it's a nicer looking one when you enter it.
Question I have to ask you. Let's say something were to go down. Do you go to Nick and be like, look, stay out here for a couple hours?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do that?
I would for him. I think he would for me, too. He would for me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He would have cleared the place out, or he would not have...
he wouldn't have slept in the spot that he slept in. By the way, we had to sleep right by each other on the ground. Did you know that? You didn't know that. Nobody knew. So that's where we slept, by the way. We had no space. Hey, it was a crowded apartment, man. Friday night and Saturday night. Not a dummy. That was me accommodating others because there were so many people there sleeping there for free. So come on. We were sleeping for free because it was Nick's brother's apartment. So remember, no bill to pay. So we had to accommodate others that were sleeping there too at the same time.
Vito, another podcast that we do, the Tigers Talk podcast that comes out every Wednesday on this fine network. You talk about minor league prospects. You talk about being patient. I think for me, I kind of got to reassess my goals with you. The first step you got to do is you got to get a friend. You got to get a cuddle buddy. You got to get a young lady that's just really kind of maybe lonely or maybe just needs some attention. And she just, at a moment's notice, nothing physical, just a cuddle buddy and a friend that you can cultivate, put some time into. Because you're a nice guy. You're not at the player type.
No,
right now.
I'm not really, no.
You got to
no.
cultivate a friend that maybe if she has a boyfriend and then they get into a fight, you can kind of slide. You can kind of
that slides in.
Slides
but
in.
I'll be in the friend zone forever.
Good.
Forever
Yes.
relegated to the friend zone, perhaps. Or maybe not. Maybe it allows me to work my way in eventually, right when they split up, is what you're saying.
Exactly. You got to get a relationship, a friendly level relationship with a young lady. That way, when maybe, or also too, nothing wrong with, if she gets a little emotional, has a rough day, or gets fired from her job, has a little bit too much to drink, you're the guy she calls, you go over her house.
I'll be right there,
One
baby.
thing leads to another, and we can kind of have a next level conversation. See, that's what we got to do is get you to develop and cultivate a female friend too. Also, they can come in here and hang out with us. Tell us a little bit like, hey, Vito's great, man. He's just, need 3-4 hours to hang out with him.
You need at least 3.
Need at least 3 hours. Yes, sir. Okay, good. So all in all, it was a good trip. It doesn't seem like you came back a brand new man.
No, not a brand new man, but a guy that's feeling good.
Might be time to, have some sex.
Get right to the point, Doc, right? That's what you're trying to tell me, too.
I think that's a perfect segue for us to go take a time out and come back and wrap up this fine podcast this week with some great things that I found on the interwebs. Oh, my goodness, Vito. Lots of interesting news and notes going on around this society we call America.
Absolutely, and we'll take a quick commercial break now on episode number 31 of Two Bad Hombres.
Vito, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When Adam and I were first starting this project and we were looking for a place to host all of our recorded audio, I'm thankful that we found Podomatic. We've recorded 600 to 700 podcasts and we've posted it to one location, Podomatic.com. If you're looking to start a brand new project, why would you use Podomatic? Easy to use. You upload all of your podcasts there, quick and easy. Within minutes, your audio that you recorded is up to the internet, up to iTunes. You can generate links for all your supporters to find any recorded audio, any podcast that you record. We've got supporters and listeners all the way in Australia, all the way in Japan. People will message me from all over. It's one of those great things when I get to open up our Twitter page and we get a lot of great comments saying, hey, you're our outlet for Detroit sports. Continue it. How are we able to be that outlet? We have a great host site that never crashes and has been around since 2005. So Doc and Jock, Vito, Jason, Jerry Mallory, all the hosts here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, we use Podomatic, and so should you. Check out Podomatic.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the frame, break the whole damn table. How we should.
And back here on episode number 31 of Two Bad Hombres, I am Vito Jerome Churko. That is the Doc, John Macaroon, alongside me as usual. John, what do you have for us in the second half of this week's podcast?
So, Vito, on Tuesday, I was scrolling around the newspapers, and I seen this article out of the Detroit News. A southeastern Michigan woman was accused of having sex with 2 teenage boys, and she was married. And, she was sentenced earlier this week. She was 38 years old. Brooke Laginess of Lima Township. She learned her punishment on Monday in a Washtenaw County courtroom. And it's likely that she's about to face maybe 10 years in prison. And, obviously, she called it a big regret. She reportedly had at least 15 encounters with this young boy. And I say to myself, what is it? Psychologically, I'm fascinated by it because of the fact that it is predatory, but at the same time, I understand that there is differences via gender regarding how people view it. Most guys, when you talk about it with your boys, they're like, yeah, you high-five each other, and you say to yourself, man, if we were in that position, if an older woman came on to me, would I turn it down? No. But at the same time, it is predatory. The responsible party has to be the adult. The 38-year-old woman cannot be flirting with people under the age of 16. It's a law. So again, in this scenario, you look at it and you look at this woman's photo. I'm fascinated, and part of me was like, man, maybe I want to start a documentary and just interview all these women that have been convicted, because You know, Vito, prior to 2005, you heard about that one case. But now it seems like in the last 7 years, since 2010, you hear story after story of these adults, sometimes teachers, which is the most disgusting in my opinion, but you hear these stories of these women, you know, having these sexual relationships with young boys. And I'm just saying to myself, where is this coming from? Where is this boundary being crossed? Because as a teenager, I was kind of gross. You know what I mean? I was an overweight kid. I wasn't thinking about sex all that much. But nowadays, you know, these 14 and 15-year-old boys, when I see them walking down the street, they're damn near 6'2". They're like, I go, damn, these guys are like in college.
They look like it. They're bigger than me and you.
They're 15,
maybe even combined.
Yeah, I have some clients that are like 6'2" that play football that if they went to a club probably wouldn't even get carded.
Yeah.
So I do understand the whole developmental nature right now where people are maturing faster, but at the same time, what do you think is some of the reasons why these women are having these affairs with young boys? What's the deal here?
Well, it's very predatory, like you said. It's not right. They're the responsible adults. They are the adults. The kids, in this case, are not the ones that, are in control typically. They are not. I mean, you have to be the responsible adult. They're kids, so they're not adults. They're kids for a reason, right? So they're going to make some mistakes, some errors in judgment. So you can't lead them on and make them think that they have a chance with you as you being the teacher and them being the student. It is so wrong, and a student-to-teacher relationship should never happen in grade school, middle school, high school, even in college to a large degree. Now, I know it happens behind the scenes in college, and it's more acceptable because everybody's 18, and the professors maybe are more close to you in age. Okay, so that's more acceptable. But yeah, this is crossing the boundary. These women and men that prey on younger children to be their partners. And then I think about it to this degree too, and this is more psychological. Don't they have somebody else at home? Or couldn't they prey on somebody else their own age almost, right?
Well, as a psychologist, I do realize that, you know what drives, I can definitely tell you the factors that drive women to have an affair with other adults, you know, not with young boys.
Well, with young boys, it's so weird, isn't it?
It's attention. It's emotional.
You think so? They get attention out of it?
Yes. What happens is in relationships, if you ignore your partner, if the other partner has issues with intimacy, if the intimacy is not right, if the emotional connectedness is way off, then you could drive a woman to have an affair. If you ignore her, if you make her feel bad, if you do not take care of business on the intimacy side of things, then you definitely will draw women. A lot more women are having affairs outside of marriage than ever before. And sometimes it does have to do with the relationship and where it goes south. But at the same time, a lot of things got to go wrong for a woman to not only have an affair on her husband, which this woman did, but also to have an affair with an underage boy.
And then two of them, by the way, 2 teenage boys, it says in this article.
What do you think of her picture, though? Man, she's cute.
Are we really talking about that? Well, she's not bad looking, but it's wrong no matter what. And then I think about it, like what you said, from a boy's perspective growing up, so hormonal, right? Think about the hormones going through your body. You're raging with hormones. You're thinking about, I have a chance with my teacher, man. I can get a leg up on the competition inside my classroom among all my friends. Think about it. A boy, especially a guy who's, horny, I mean, we all are to a certain extent, and those boys, especially in high school, man, the hormones are just raging. So they think, yeah, I can brag about this, getting with my teacher to my buddy. So why am I not going to do it? So once again, they're not operating with the right mindset. So these kids, they're called kids. They are kids for a reason. They're not going to always make the right decisions.
Vito, scroll down, read the last paragraph. Authorities say the boys were 14 and 15 last year when she lured them in with naked pictures of herself on Snapchat.
Why are you doing that and not thinking you won't get in trouble? Now, Vito, she's not operating with a full brain.
Now, Vito, I'm going to ask you a serious question.
Yes.
I think the answer is going to be no.
Yes.
But have you ever texted anyone, send me nudes?
No, I have not. See, but I'm too good. I'm too nice once again.
Exactly.
But you know what? I think it's degrading of the girl to ask the girl.
Vito.
And maybe I'm a feminist now, too. Am I?
No.
It's
Vito,
better, I think, to be that than a misogynist.
I'm shocked. 2020 did a piece on this, on young people and the use of their phones, the good qualities, the bad qualities. More and more, yes, women are offended by that, by some things that guys send to them.
Yes.
But at the same time, the notion and the requests of guys asking girls to send them pictures, and young girls and older women are doing it all over the place.
They're satisfying the request. That's why it's scary to be a father of daughters. No offense to you. Good luck with your daughters. But it's like if they're attractive, the sad thing is,
I'm not giving my kid her cell phone until she turns 16. That's what I've already told my wife.
You better watch out with your daughter. She's going to rebel, man. She's going to be all over your behind.
No,
about that.
The thinking is that they got to be mature. And this is part of the byproduct of giving kids phones at 12, 13
Too
years
young,
old.
like we've talked about before.
What's happened is the phone has become a babysitter, and they get into trouble because the impulse control is not there, Vito.
No, it's not
And
yet.
as a psychologist, I implore parents that are listening to this, I implore you, don't give your kid a phone and let them go up to in their room for 4, 5, 6 hours. It has to be controlled. You got to know what they're doing and downloading. Look, if you don't know what's going on Snapchat, you got to realize that it is dangerous, and there are predators out there.
Yeah.
Ones that you would not expect are predators out there. And more people are asking, send nudes and things like that. Sometimes guys, that's the only form of communication they got in terms of picking up women, is shooting a text, going on a social dating app. And then the next thing you know, that's the way they think that you pick someone up. And it's like, no, that's not how you do it. And, to piggyback off of this, she lured them in with social media to get them to be attracted to her. What does that say about her and her level of self-esteem and need for attention, that she's sending naked pictures of her body to 14 and 15-year-olds?
So not only like trying to seduce them, right? But nudes being sent to 14 and 15-year-old boys, it's a problem. She is craving, has been, or at least was craving attention. And now guess what? She's dealing with the repercussions of it, isn't she?
She pled guilty to the charge, and unfortunately, she's going to spend some time. I think she's going to be arraigned in early September, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm kind of fascinated by this whole notion, and maybe, just maybe, maybe I'll bring you along. Maybe we'll do a documentary on it, because it's fascinating to learn about. I'm curious about it. I want to know what it is about young boys that these women find. Is it the attention from, like, maybe the dark side of it, like knowing that it's
so
improper?
wrong that it makes them want it more?
Yeah, maybe.
Isn't there something to that at times too with people and
possible.
what they crave?
Well, this is how documentaries are made. You have a question, we probably should
We
get
can
an
ask
answer.
it.
Why not?
And I think it's more about the female teachers and male teachers that lure the boys and girls in, not the boys or girls that kind of seduce the teachers. Now, it leads to erroneous behavior from the teachers too, where they get in trouble, to the same extent and get fired, lose their jobs, lose their careers, and rightfully so. But for me, it's even more messed up and more, I think, worth diving into the topic of these men and women that lure the children in. Makes it even worse, and you want to dive, I think, for me at least, I want to dive into those people's heads even more to see why the heck are you craving the attention of 14 and 15-year-old boys or girls, or 15 and 16-year-old boys or girls? What's in their head that's triggering that for them? That would be an interesting documentary, and maybe one that we should collaborate on in the near future, Doc.
You never know. Well, Vito, switching gears here, I want to commend you. I took the wife last weekend. We were kind of bored, and it was a Saturday night, I believe, and my mom was watching the kids. And she said, hey, from time to time, she'll say, hey, I'm here. Go out, have a good time with the missus if it's been a while since we went on a date. And I'm like, Dunkirk is showing 10 o'clock IMAX. I went to see it. Oh, my goodness, Vito. I don't know if you described it with the enthusiasm in which I am, but it's very fascinating, the duality in terms of how I perceived the movie. And my wife was just like, we should not have seen this movie at 10 o'clock. We saw it at 10 o'clock at night, and it was like 90 minutes of pure gunfire. And in IMAX, it was awesome. I was like, I felt like I was on the beach. I felt like I was in the air. I felt like I was in the water. It was cinematography. It should definitely be up there, nominated for an Oscar for beautiful cinematography. The part that was difficult was there was really no plot other than they're retreating.
It was hard to follow at times, right?
It wasn't hard to follow. It was they're retreating. It was hard that they bounce around a little bit. But in terms of the movie-going experience, I would say one of the top 5 movie experiences I ever had. I was having my popcorn, and it was just like, bop, 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 bop. And it was great action, and IMAX was unbelievable to see that movie that way. I could see why it got 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. But at the same time, I think probably to expand upon the description that you probably gave, it's not a date movie. It's a movie you go with the boys.
No, it's not a movie you bring with your missus.
No, it's not a movie you bring to, women probably are not going to want to see that kind of movie in IMAX and get the same thrill out of it that I did. I was like, damn, this is awesome. I was like, this is unbelievable. My wife was like, she kind of reacted to it and was like, it was great to see. She enjoyed it, but she was like, this is traumatic. All the shootings, all the things going on. And for her, she was like, no, we probably will never do that again.
Well, a war movie. Is she into war movies with all that shooting anyways?
No.
And typically speaking, women aren't. There's even some males out there. There are males out there that don't get into that kind of movie. But I think the directorial job of Christopher Nolan, who I believe now has made 10 movies as a film director, being credited as the director of a given film, I think he deserves to win an Oscar, right?
Mm-hmm.
For this movie.
I would say it definitely deserves to be nominated. It was quite the entertainment. I definitely give it 5 stars. I thought it was a great movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but yeah, it's not a date movie. Now, on the other side of things, I didn't get a chance to. It was on the list of movies that we debated. Detroit didn't do that well.
It didn't, huh?
7.3 million after a limited release last week. Now, others have started to critique it a little bit, and one of the biggest critics is Jamel Hill. She wrote an article
Really?
and said,
What did she say about it?
She said that it's a great movie, but it doesn't include a lot of the story of African-American women in the movie. And so
okay.
she kind of took that angle, and I think a lot of people are saying, well, it is kind of a niche kind of topic, and how many people this day and age are interested in the 1967 Detroit riots outside of Detroit? Obviously here, it's a great big deal. Many people here around town went to the release when it was at the Fox Theater. But all in all, I haven't heard, anybody yet kind of speak out on it when they went there in terms of what they thought about it. Have you heard any reviews about the movie at all?
I've heard a lot of positive reviews, but maybe from the vantage point of an African-American female, because I don't think you and I are African-American females. Last time I checked, we aren't. So maybe from their vantage point, yes, if there weren't enough parts included about African-American females and what they were going through during the 1967 riots, maybe that is a critique of the movie and where the movie was lacking. But I think overall-wise, and maybe it's not as critically acclaimed as I thought and as I perceived it would be, but I thought that it has been pretty darn critically acclaimed so far. Now, what does it say on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way?
86% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, so I mean, that's good. That's always good, by the way.
But the audience, a little bit less, 76% liked it.
And that's still good. I think anything over 75%, right, you're going to take as a film director as just being part of a movie for the movie that you're part of. You're going to say, if I get that good of a review on Rotten Tomatoes, then the movie's done something right.
In browsing some of the critics' reviews, a lot of people say it was well made. A lot of people say that around that time, in order to make a movie like this, it definitely takes time and effort, and they give credit to the movie makers and they give credit to the filmmakers for taking on such a movie. But I just think that it's a niche thing, and I think outside of Detroit and Michigan, not a lot of people are going to be interested in this kind of topic because of the fact that it also deals with some strong racial overtones. It also brings back bad memories of how African Americans were treated. And outside of Michigan, I'm not so sure that a lot of people are going to be interested in this kind of movie based out of Detroit.
Yeah, if you don't really have some sort of a connection to the city, right? Or to back then, maybe not being around back then. If you weren't from that time when the riots went on in 1967, maybe you don't find that connection and don't get into the movie because of that. Because the plot of the movie is all about that. I mean, so if you don't know anything about it, have no connection to it or connection to the city, you're probably not going to get into that movie, Doc.
I think definitely I will check it out in the next couple weeks and give a thorough review. But the Free Press did a great documentary as part of the Free Press Film Festival called 12th and Claremont, and it aired on WXYZ Channel 7, and I got a chance to see kind of footage at the time, kind of put me back into the context of what people were thinking around the time of the riots. And so I'm definitely interested myself, obviously, being born in Michigan and understanding the history of Detroit and what happened. I think I'm going to check it out and give a thorough review, maybe not on next week's, but maybe the week after if I do get some time.
Well, I hope you get some time because you deserve some time to yourself to enjoy yourself via watching a film too. I think a great film. I haven't seen it, so I guess I can't say it's a great film. But from what all we've heard, right, and on Rotten Tomatoes, I think it is one that everybody should check out, at least that is from Michigan. And specifically, if you grew up in the Detroit area or have family that lives in Detroit, from back then or even does now, I think you should be checking out Detroit.
All right, Vito, to end the podcast, the saga of Colin Kaepernick seems to be taking on a life of its own. Earlier in the week, Spike Lee denied that he was promoting a rally for Colin Kaepernick at NFL headquarters. Part of the reason this has flamed is that Jay Cutler got signed with the Dolphins for $10 million. And people are like, wait a minute, isn't Colin Kaepernick a better quarterback, a much better quarterback than Jay Cutler? Now, when I saw that Jay Cutler got signed, the first thing that most people note is that he has a relationship with Adam Gase. And Colin Kaepernick, I think if there was one job that he was not going to get, it was the Miami Dolphins job because of the fact that he wore a Fidel Castro shirt. And that precludes you pretty much from entering into any job opportunity in Miami. Do you remember? I don't know if you recall the controversy of a very popular manager for the Miami Marlins, Ozzie Guillen. He talked favorably about Fidel Castro, had to issue an apology because he offended many Miami residents. And so I would say that you're being a little bit narrow-sighted if you thought that Colin Kaepernick would just walk in and become the quarterback of the Miami Dolphins. But at the same time, do you think that it's warranted that he gets support and have a rally outside of the NFL offices to try to get a job, because people are still saying he's getting blackballed and he might not get a job at the start of the year.
Well, is he going to get a job out of that rally because of it? Spike Lee throwing a rally for him. If it does occur now, would that really lead to a job for Colin Kaepernick, or maybe even dismantle whatever credibility he has left as a guy that maybe could play in the league again at the quarterback position? It might just do the opposite of what maybe is intended to produce. The intended outcome is meant to be from that rally. So I think it really could, further blackball him, or hurt his credibility of being a quarterback in the league again, and his chances of getting a job to be a quarterback in the league again.
Do you think it's unfair that he doesn't have a job right now?
I think it is, because how about the backups that have been signed up of late? The Seahawks were entertaining the idea of signing Colin Kaepernick. I think they signed Austin Davis, and you have to ask yourself, who the heck is Austin Davis? What has he achieved in his NFL career? Diddly squat. Colin Kaepernick has been to a Super Bowl, has been a good quarterback in the past, is a mobile quarterback, a dual threat quarterback, you could say, with a rocket arm, and maybe not the most accurate at times, or, maybe recently hasn't shown the most on the field. But really, when you consider Austin Davis or Colin Kaepernick, who should you be choosing? Realistically, it should be Colin Kaepernick, based on recent track record, just his overall NFL track record, and comparing it to Austin Davis's overall NFL track record. So for me, there is no reason for why Colin Kaepernick is not on somebody's team, at least as their backup.
Oh boy, Vito, sometimes as we're recording, news breaks. Ex-Lions linebacker DeAndre Levy files injury grievance against the franchise.
Everybody just has sour grapes now against the Lions. Even past players. We thought it was just the fans. Now it's the past players, and a lot of them, not just Barry Sanders. It's Kelvin Johnson, DeAndre Levy, So you have everybody now coming out more and more, at least, expressing their disgrace, right? Their displeasure with the Lions franchise and how they were treated by the Lions. And how poor does this look for the Lions franchise right now? Kelvin Johnson recently expressing sour grapes. DeAndre Levy now expressing sour grapes towards the Lions franchise. The Lions franchise, which has taken so many hits over the years, can they afford to take more hits? And this is the best team supposedly now among the four major Detroit professional sports teams. And you have the Lions to count on to win a championship the soonest among the four. We're in a scary state as Detroit sports fans, aren't we? When we have to realize that more than likely the Lions are the best professional sports teams among the four major ones in Detroit to be able to win a championship in the near future.
So I want to kind of tie it in together with this, and we'll definitely give our opinions on DeAndre Levy, because I kind of had a feeling it wasn't going to end properly with him. The way I want to look at it is this. Let's say Matthew Stafford, prize quarterback, whatever you think he's worth. Maybe he signs a long-term deal, maybe he doesn't. But let's say this season, Vito, he goes down with an injury, an 8-week injury. You got two backups, Jake Rudock and Kaya the rookie. Do you make a call to Colin Kaepernick, knowing that it would cause some level of outrage? Definitely some noise will be brought to the organization. If Stafford goes down with a major injury, do you call Colin Kaepernick and sign him up? Because it looks like, from all accounts, from what we're seeing, that it's going to take a season-ending injury, probably amongst one of the starters across the NFL, for Colin to get a job.
It's going to take something catastrophic, and I think maybe something even more catastrophic than that happening to a starting quarterback in the league right now. I think it might be where 2 or 3 guys on the quarterback depth chart for an NFL franchise have to get hurt all of a sudden. Like in the preseason here, 2 or 3 quarterbacks go down that are a part of one team's depth chart. I think if that does occur, Kaepernick's chances of claiming a job this season are much better, and that might be the best way for him to be able to claim a job this season as an NFL quarterback, even as a third stringer, let's say. It might have to come down to that. A lot of guys on one single franchise's depth chart getting hurt. Because just the starting quarterback get hurt, well, they're going to go to the backup that's already been established as a backup. And the Lions right now, I see them going to Jake Rudock. If something catastrophic happens to Matthew Stafford, they'll turn to Jake Rudock. Now, do I think that Rudock's better than Kaepernick? No. Has he achieved more in the NFL to this point than Colin Kaepernick? By far, no. But I think the Lions view Rudock as a capable backup and replacement quarterback for Stafford. If Stafford were to go down to an injury, I think they believe that Rudock is a guy they can give the keys to, and he can run the show at least adequately, which means they wouldn't find it fitting to add Colin Kaepernick.
No, Vito, I definitely agree. I think you make the phone call. I disagree with you a little bit in thinking that they won't make it, but do they actually sign him to a contract? I just think that a guy like Bob Quinn already knows when he's evaluated Kaepernick on film that there's probably better options out there. They'll probably stick with Jake Rudock to give him the chance to see what he's got, because I just think that in combination with the noise surrounding Colin Kaepernick, I genuinely also feel like general managers think he sucks as a quarterback.
But you know what? Then you look at Jay Cutler, a guy that is perceived as a guy that's not trying hard, doesn't care about being an NFL player, about being a team's franchise passer. Lackadaisical it looks like from Cutler is what you see right with him at times, or a lot of times. Kaepernick has been perceived, remembered by teammates, as a good teammate. So Cutler, not as much, and Kaepernick, I think, is perceived as more of a hard worker at this point, definitely, than Jay Cutler is. Jay Cutler had to be bribed to come out of retirement with $10 million in front of him. And I guess his wife had to persuade him to join forces with the Dolphins as well, even though Cutler already had $10 million reasons, 10 million reasons, right? Monetary-wise, to join forces with the Dolphins, and a former offensive coordinator with the Dolphins as now the Dolphins head coach. And he still had to be bribed with, well, not only $10 million, but supposedly his wife telling him, go play quarterback for the Miami Dolphins because Ryan Tannehill went down. So Cutler almost didn't take the position. I think Kaepernick would have full-heartedly embraced the quarterback position with the Dolphins if given the opportunity, which wasn't going to happen once again because of what you said with what Kaepernick had said about Fidel Castro. The only thing I fear is that the Dolphins still would not have entertained the idea of signing Colin Kaepernick to be their starter in the place of Ryan Tannehill. If Cutler would have shot them down, I don't think they would have gone in the direction of Colin Kaepernick. And there is a report from Peter King of the Quarterback, QB.com that says that if Jay Cutler did not return to the NFL in order to sign with the Dolphins, Miami would have chosen to go in the direction of signing Robert Griffin III and Christian Ponder, that is, of all quarterbacks, rather than signing Colin Kaepernick. And that's when it's indicative to me that Kaepernick is being blackballed by a lot of NFL teams right now, Doc.
Yeah, and to finish this podcast, DeAndre Levy, it just seems like, when he left and retired from the Detroit Lions, it led you to believe there was some serious discrepancies regarding the medical reports that he thought he was getting versus what actually happened. I think that he kind of walks away feeling like he was forced back onto the field when in actuality he was a lot more injured than he really was. And I think he's got a lot of when he left, you saw that Instagram post where he was walking around in a boot and he was just like, I was like this, and the Lions felt like I was definitely ready to play. So you thought that there was going to be an issue with how DeAndre Levy felt he was treated medically. And it'll be fascinating to see, because if there is a little bit of negligence, let's not jump right away to conclusions and bash DeAndre Levy as maybe a guy that wasn't committed or a guy that's seeking money, because he tried. He went back out there, and I think, right now as we're talking about this, I think he didn't want to come back. I think he felt like he was injured, and he wanted to, he wanted to stay off the sidelines. He wanted to stay off of the field and resume his career when he was 100% healthy. And there is some speculation, maybe on my part, that he feels like he was forced back to play football those couple games before he retired.
Forced prematurely to return to football? Well, maybe it's because of the fact that DeAndre Levy, I think, was deciding not to play at times when he was healthy too earlier on, before the Lions supposedly prematurely forced him to get back on the playing field. Were there instances where DeAndre Levy was refusing to play for the Lions because he didn't want to play for the Lions? Was it based on that, a Barry Sanders kind of deal, the Barry Sanders syndrome, the Kelvin Johnson syndrome, where DeAndre Levy simply did not want to play for the Detroit Lions at times? I think it was more of that than there being a serious injury at times. So the Lions may be forcing him to play. Were they in that big of the wrong? I mean, or would you blame them if you were the Lions and he was doing that to your organization, just deciding not to suit up because he doesn't want to play for your franchise anymore?
Well,
right? That's not totally right either, in my opinion.
In this day and age, I think athletes are definitely aware that the NFL has done some shady things to get players back on the field, maybe prematurely. And I'm definitely going to be watching and seeing how this progresses with DeAndre Levy, because it's important. It's of the utmost importance that NFL franchises take the health of their athletes very seriously. It's a new day and age, And I don't think it involves head trauma and CT. I think it involves his leg or other injuries.
More than that, yeah.
So it'll be fascinating to see what his doctor reported was wrong with him versus what Lions doctors reported, because if there's a discrepancy, if he sought second opinions outside of the Lions, then there may be grounds for a serious lawsuit, because if another doctor that he saw outside of the Lions said that, whoa, you got a serious injury, and you go back to the Lions and they're like, oh, you're like a week away from playing, now you got a situation where the biggest thing that team doctors got to worry about is that they kind of work for the team, and they sometimes are hearing things and not fulfilling their medical oath by maybe prematurely sending players back in maybe a couple weeks early to get them back on the field. Because remember, who signs a doctor's paycheck? The organization.
Martha Ford.
And what does Martha Ford want? Martha Ford and the management want the player back on the field because they're paying him a boatload of money. And at the same time, it's not the first time. Don't be surprised that there are some incompetent doctors that are being paid by these NFL teams because of the fact that, hey, if you're paying a doctor a couple $100,000, you want him to basically document what is needed to get the guy back on the field, because you're paying him upwards of $4, $5, $6 million a year. You don't want the guy just freeloading.
Well, you fire the entire medical staff then. If that comes to fruition, where the Lions have a major lawsuit on their hands, which it looks like it could happen. And DeAndre Levy, he could just get a doctor to forge a little bit here and there, the medical records of what the extent of his injury really is, make it look worse than it really is. And that could be used to file a lawsuit against the Lions. Because you know what? I feel like that could be on the verge of happening, especially if that does occur where he gets a doctor to sign off on his injury being more serious than the Lions are labeled it to be. Watch out, because serious things will happen then. Serious blowback to the Lions for their organization. Well, and to Martha Ford being the owner of the Lions. And I would say, I would recommend the Lions then, you got to fire your entire medical staff. I mean, God, how do you get from under that, right? And get back to good graces with the media and with your fan base.
Great podcast, Vito. Always enjoy our conversations. I hope you have a great weekend. Thank you so much. Man, great recap of your trip to Chicago. Great talks as always. I always enjoy the podcast that we record.
Doc, adios, and adios to all of you that tuned in to episode number 31 of Two Bad Hombres.
If you've enjoyed this podcast that you've just listened to, you can download this and any other podcast on our network 24/7 on demand. You're in control. Visit our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. And if you subscribe to us on iTunes, please just take a couple minutes, leave us a 5-star review. It definitely helps the podcast network. Thank you very much.
Head spin, get it, get flat. I got 6 jobs, I don't care.